The emergency session of the Terran Council convened within hours of the reconnaissance team's return. The chamber was packed with representatives from every major human world and station, their faces grim as they absorbed the intelligence that Amelia's team had gathered. 10 days, High Counselor Vasquez said, her mental voice carrying the weight of the crisis. 10 days to prepare for the potential extinction of human civilization. The holographic display showed the massive structure on the moon, now pulsing with increasing intensity. The energy readings had continued to climb since the team's return, and new construction was appearing around the primary site. Options? Admiral Nakamura asked bluntly. Limited, Amelia replied. Direct assault would be suicide. The Orcs have capabilities we don't fully understand, and they're expecting us to try to stop them. What about the fleet? General Al-Rashid asked. Surely we can overwhelm them with superior numbers. Dr. Kepler shook his head. The energy signatures suggest they can manipulate matter at the quantum level without technology. Our weapons might not even function properly in their presence. Then we adapt, Admiral Nakamura said. We've faced impossible odds before. Not like this, Dr. Tanaka interjected. According to the Orc we spoke with, they've done this before. They've perfected the process of conquering civilizations that reach our level of development. How? High Counselor Vasquez asked. They wait, Tanaka replied. They plant the seeds of their return in the mythologies of young species, then return when those species develop quantum manipulation technology. They use that technology to open gateways for their masters. Who are these masters? Dr. Volkov asked. Unknown, Tanaka admitted. But the energy signature of the gateway suggests they're not from our dimension. Possibly not from our reality. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just facing an invasion, they were facing the arrival of beings that might operate on principles completely outside human understanding. There has to be a weakness, Amelia said. No system is perfect. What do you propose? The High Counselor asked. We need to understand their technology better. Dr. Kepler, what did you learn from the energy patterns? Kepler activated his analysis displays. The structure is definitely biological, but it's also quantum-based. It exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, which explains why it can manipulate matter so effectively. But it's still biological, Amelia pointed out. Living things have vulnerabilities. True, Kepler agreed. But the energy patterns suggest it's not just one organism, it's a collective. The Orcs, the structure, possibly even the moon itself are all part of a single biological system. A hive mind, Tanaka added. But on a planetary scale. Admiral Nakamura leaned forward. What happens if we disrupt the collective? Unknown, Kepler replied. But theoretically it might cause the entire system to collapse. How do we disrupt it? General Al-Rashid asked. We need to introduce something that the collective can't integrate, Amelia said, her mind working through the possibilities. Something that would act like a virus in their system. A quantum virus? Dr. Volkov asked. Possibly, Kepler said. But it would need to be something that could operate on both biological and quantum levels simultaneously. Do we have anything like that? The High Counselor asked. No, Kepler admitted. But we might be able to create it. In 10 days? Admiral Nakamura asked skeptically. With the right resources and personnel, Kepler replied. It's possible. What would you need? The High Counselor asked. Every quantum engineer in the Federation. Every xenobiologist. Every consciousness researcher. And access to the most advanced computing systems we have. Done, the High Counselor said immediately. What else? A delivery system, Amelia added. Something that can get close enough to the structure to introduce the virus without being detected or destroyed. That's the difficult part, Torres said. Their biological senses detected us even through our best stealth technology. Then we don't use stealth, Amelia said. We use something they won't expect. What do you have in mind? Admiral Nakamura asked. We go in openly. We pretend to surrender. The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea of surrendering to an enemy that intended to destroy human civilization was almost unthinkable. "Explain," the High Counselor said, her mental voice cutting through the noise. "The orc we spoke with said they've done this before," Amelia said. "They're confident because they've never failed. They're expecting us to try to fight them with conventional weapons. They're not expecting us to try to join them." "You're talking about infiltration," Dr. Volkov realized. "Exactly. We approach them as a species that wants to be integrated into their collective. We offer our knowledge and technology in exchange for survival. And while they're integrating us, we introduce the virus," Kepler added, understanding the plan. "It's incredibly dangerous," Torres warned. "If they detect the deception, then we die," Amelia said simply. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway. Who would volunteer for such a mission?" General Al-Rashid asked. "I will," Amelia said immediately. "It's my plan." "I'll go too," Dr. Kepler added. "You'll need someone who understands the technical aspects." "Count me in," Torres said. "If this goes wrong, you'll need someone who can fight." "And me," Tanaka added. "You'll need someone who can communicate with them." 4 people against a planetary collective, Admiral Nakamura observed. "The odds are impossible." "The odds have always been impossible," Amelia replied. "That's never stopped us before." High Counselor Vasquez's mental presence seemed to expand as she considered the plan. "It's desperate," she said finally. "But it might be our only chance." "What about the rest of the fleet?" Admiral Nakamura asked. "Prepare for the worst," the High Counselor replied. "If this mission fails, we'll need to be ready to evacuate as many people as possible." "Evacuate to where?" General Al-Rashid asked. "Anywhere but here," the High Counselor said grimly. Over the next few hours, the details of the plan were refined. Dr. Kepler would lead a crash program to develop the quantum virus, while Amelia's team prepared for the most dangerous mission in human history. The virus would be delivered through biological implants that would appear to be normal human augmentations. The Orcs would hopefully integrate the team into their collective, allowing the virus to spread throughout their system. "What if they don't integrate us?" Tanaka asked during the final briefing. "Then we improvise," Amelia replied. "But according to the orc we spoke with, integration is part of their standard process. They want to use our knowledge." "What if the virus doesn't work?" Torres asked. "Then we buy time for the fleet to evacuate as many people as possible," Amelia said. "And if it does work? Then we save humanity," Amelia said simply. As the team prepared for the mission, Amelia found herself thinking about the magnitude of what they were attempting. 4 people against a collective that had destroyed entire civilizations. The odds were beyond impossible. But humanity had always excelled at achieving the impossible. The modified diplomatic vessel Harmony approached the lunar surface under full communication protocols, broadcasting humanity's surrender on all frequencies. The irony wasn't lost on Amelia. They were using humanity's most advanced diplomatic ship to deliver what might be the most dangerous weapon ever created. "Quantum virus is stable," Dr. Kepler reported from his station. The virus existed as a pattern of quantum information encoded in specially modified neural implants. To external observation, they would appear to be normal human augmentations. Only when they integrated with the Orc collective would they reveal their true nature. "Communication arrays are active," Tanaka added. "I'm transmitting our surrender message in 17 different languages and communication formats." "Response?" Amelia asked. "Receiving acknowledgement," Tanaka replied. "They're directing us to land near the main structure." Through the viewport, the alien construction looked even more massive than before. The organic architecture had grown significantly in the past few days, and new structures were appearing around the primary site. The entire lunar surface seemed to be transforming into something that resembled a living organism. "Energy readings are off the charts," Torres reported. "Whatever they're building, it's almost ready." "How long do we have?" Amelia asked. "Based on the energy curve, I'd estimate less than 48 hours before the gateway reaches critical mass, Kepler replied. Then we better work fast. The landing was different from their previous visit. Instead of the gentle touchdown they had experienced before, the ship was drawn to the surface by invisible forces. They could feel the alien technology taking control of their vessel, guiding it to a predetermined location. We're not landing, Torres observed. We're being absorbed. He was right. The lunar surface rose up around the ship, forming an organic docking cradle that sealed around the hull. They were now completely enclosed within the alien structure. Atmospheric readings are stable, Kepler reported. They're providing us with a breathable environment. How considerate, Amelia said dryly. The airlock cycled, and they found themselves in a chamber that was clearly biological in nature. The walls pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns they had seen before, and the floor felt soft and yielding beneath their feet. Welcome, a familiar voice said. It was the same orc they had encountered during their reconnaissance mission. Behind him stood a group of other orcs, their glowing eyes studying the human team with what might have been curiosity. We have come to offer our surrender, Amelia said, following the script they had prepared. Surrender implies defeat, the orc replied. You have not been defeated. You have been chosen. Chosen for what? To join the great work. Your species has achieved quantum manipulation, a rare and valuable skill. You will be integrated into the collective, and your knowledge will be used to serve the old ones. What does integration involve? Tanaka asked. You will be connected to the collective consciousness. Your individual minds will become part of a greater whole. You will retain your knowledge and abilities, but they will be directed toward the common purpose. And if we refuse? Amelia asked. You cannot refuse. Integration is inevitable for all species that reach your level of development. The only choice is whether you join willingly or are forced to join. Amelia looked at her team. They had known this moment would come, but it was still difficult to face. They were about to voluntarily submit to a process that would fundamentally alter their humanity. We choose to join willingly, she said. The orc's expression might have been pleased. Excellent. The process will begin immediately. The chamber around them began to change, with new structures growing from the walls and floor. The team was guided to what appeared to be organic chairs that molded themselves to their bodies. The integration process will take several hours, the orc explained. During this time, you will experience the collective consciousness gradually. Do not resist. Resistance only makes the process more difficult. What will we experience? Kepler asked. You will feel the minds of thousands of beings. You will understand purposes that span millennia. You will see the universe as it truly is, not as separate worlds and species, but as components of a single great organism. As the organic chairs began to pulse with energy, Amelia felt the first tendrils of alien consciousness touching her mind. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced, vast, ancient, and utterly alien. Remember the mission, she whispered to her team as the integration began. The collective consciousness was overwhelming. Amelia could feel the minds of thousands of orcs, all connected in a vast network of shared thought and purpose. But beyond them, she sensed something else, ancient minds of incredible power and intelligence. The old ones? They were not from this dimension, not from any reality that humans could understand. They existed in the spaces between realities, in the quantum foam that underlay the universe itself. They were not evil in any human sense. They were simply so alien that human concepts of good and evil were meaningless to them. And they were coming. Beautiful, isn't it? The orc's voice came from within the collective consciousness. To see the universe as it truly is. Amelia forced herself to focus on the mission. The quantum virus was hidden within her neural implants, waiting for the right moment to activate. She needed to let the integration process continue long enough for the virus to spread throughout the collective, but not so long that her own consciousness was completely absorbed. I can see the pattern, she said, playing her role. The way all species are connected. Yes, the orc replied. Every species that achieves quantum manipulation becomes part of the network. Each adds their knowledge and abilities to the whole. How many species have joined? Thousands. Across thousands of worlds. All working toward the same goal, the return of the old ones to this reality. Amelia could feel the knowledge flowing through the collective. The Orcs had been doing this for millennia, moving from world to world, species to species, always working toward the same ultimate goal. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were gardeners, cultivating civilizations until they were ready to serve the old ones. The gateway is almost complete, the Orc continued. Soon, the barriers between dimensions will fall, and the old ones will return to rule over all realities. Through the collective consciousness, Amelia could sense the massive structure on the lunar surface. It was not just a gateway. It was a beacon, designed to call the old ones back from their exile in the spaces between realities. And it was almost ready. "Now," she whispered to her team through their private communication channel. The quantum virus activated. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The virus was designed to work slowly, spreading through the collective consciousness like a biological infection. But instead of destroying tissue, it disrupted the quantum connections that held the collective together. "Something is wrong." The Orc's mental voice carried confusion and alarm. Amelia could feel the virus spreading through the network, creating chaos in the carefully ordered collective consciousness. The Orcs were losing their connection to each other, their shared purpose fragmenting into individual confusion. "What have you done?" the Orc demanded. "What we had to do," Amelia replied, struggling to maintain her connection to the collective long enough to ensure the virus spread completely. The effect was devastating. The collective consciousness that had bound thousands of Orcs across the lunar surface began to collapse. The carefully coordinated construction work ground to a halt as the Orcs lost their ability to communicate with each other. But the virus had an unexpected effect. As the collective consciousness collapsed, the biological structure of the gateway began to destabilize. The massive organism that had been grown on the lunar surface started to convulse and writhe, its bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. "The gateway," Kepler gasped. "It's collapsing." Through the failing collective consciousness, Amelia could sense the panic of the Orcs. Without their shared mind, they were lost, unable to coordinate their efforts to save their millennia-long project. But there was something else. Something vast and ancient and incredibly angry. The old ones had sensed the disruption. "They're coming," the Orc whispered, his mental voice filled with terror. "The old ones are coming early. The gateway isn't ready, but they're coming anyway." Amelia felt a chill of cosmic horror as she sensed the approaching presence of the old ones. They were beings of such alien intelligence and power that human minds could barely comprehend them. And they were very, very angry. "We need to get out of here," she told her team. "Now." But as they tried to break free from the integration chairs, they realized they were trapped. The collapsing biological structure had sealed around them, and their human technology was incompatible with the alien systems. "We're stuck," Torres reported. "Not for long," Kepler said grimly. "The entire structure is collapsing. When it goes, we go with it." Amelia looked around at her team, her friends, and realized they had succeeded in their mission, but at the cost of their own lives. The quantum virus had worked, but they would not live to see the results. "At least we saved humanity," she said. "Did we?" Tanaka asked, her eyes wide with terror as she sensed the approaching old ones. "Or did we just make them angry?" As the lunar structure collapsed around them, Amelia realized they were about to find out. The collapse of the lunar structure was not a simple physical event. It was a catastrophic failure of interdimensional architecture that sent shockwaves through multiple realities. Amelia and her team found themselves trapped in a nightmare of collapsing biological matter and chaotic quantum energies. "The integration chairs are failing," Kepler reported, his enhanced senses struggling to process the alien data streams. "The quantum bonds are breaking down." Around them, the organic chamber convulsed and writhed as the virus continued its work. The bioluminescent patterns that had once pulsed with purposeful energy now flickered randomly, like a dying nervous system. "Emergency protocols," Amelia commanded, activating the hidden systems in their equipment. Full power to personal shields. The energy barriers that protected them from the alien environment flared to life, but they were designed for normal space conditions. The collapsing structure around them was no longer following the laws of physics that humans understood. "I'm reading massive dimensional distortions," Torres warned. "The gateway is destabilizing, but it's not shutting down, it's opening randomly." Through the chaos, they could see glimpses of other realities, worlds where the laws of physics were different, where time flowed backward, where matter and energy existed in states that had no names in human science. And through those glimpses, something was coming. "They're here," Tanaka whispered, her xenoarchaeological training helping her recognize the signs. "The old ones? They're forcing their way through the incomplete gateway." The first manifestation was subtle, a change in the quality of light, a shift in the way shadows fell. But Amelia could feel it in her enhanced nervous system, a presence that was so alien and vast that her human mind could barely register it. "We need to move," she said, struggling to free herself from the failing integration chair. "The structure is collapsing, but we might be able to reach the ship." "The ship is gone," Torres reported grimly. "It was absorbed into the structure when we landed. When this thing goes down, it takes everything with it." The team fought their way through the collapsing biological matter, their enhanced physiology allowing them to survive conditions that would have killed normal humans. The alien structure around them was in its death throes, but it was still dangerous. "This way," Kepler called, his instruments detecting a pathway through the chaos. "There's a stable section about 50 meters ahead." They pushed forward through the nightmarish landscape of failing alien biology. The walls around them were no longer walls. They were membranes between realities, showing glimpses of the spaces between dimensions where the old ones had been imprisoned. "Look," Tanaka said, pointing to one of the dimensional tiers. Through the rift, they could see something that defied description. It was vast and ancient and intelligent, but it existed in so many dimensions simultaneously that human perception could only grasp fragments of its true nature. It was beautiful and terrible and utterly alien. "That's one of them," Tanaka breathed. "One of the old ones?" The being noticed their observation and turned its attention toward them. The experience was overwhelming, like being examined by a force of nature that possessed intelligence beyond human comprehension. "It's trying to communicate," Kepler said, his instruments detecting patterns in the dimensional distortions. "The energy signatures suggest some form of multidimensional language. Can you understand it?" Amelia asked. "I'm trying," Kepler replied, his enhanced mind working to decode the alien communication. "It's curious about us. It wants to know how we disrupted the collective. Tell it we're just trying to survive," Amelia said. Kepler's response was transmitted through the dimensional rift. The old one's attention intensified, and suddenly all 4 team members found themselves in direct mental contact with the alien intelligence. The experience was indescribable. The old one's mind was vast and ancient, containing knowledge that spanned eons and realities. It had seen the birth and death of galaxies, the rise and fall of countless civilizations. And it was very, very curious about the small beings who had disrupted its carefully laid plans. "You are not what we expected," the old one communicated, its thoughts arriving in their minds like cosmic weather. "Your species was supposed to be integrated into the collective. Instead, you have destroyed it." "We're protecting our people," Amelia replied, her thoughts somehow reaching the alien intelligence. "We won't be enslaved." "Enslaved?" The concept seemed to amuse the old one. "You misunderstand. The collective is not slavery, it is evolution. We guide species to their next stage of development." "By destroying their individuality?" Tanaka asked. "By connecting them to something greater than themselves. Your species is young and afraid. You cling to your separation, your loneliness. We offer unity. At the cost of our freedom." "Freedom to do what?" "To remain isolated and limited? To die alone in the darkness between stars?" Amelia could feel the old one's genuine confusion. To a being that existed across multiple dimensions and eons of time, The human concept of individual freedom was incomprehensible. "We choose our own path," she said firmly. "That's what makes us human." "Then you choose extinction," the Old One replied. "Without guidance, your species will destroy itself within a few millennia. We have seen it happen countless times." "Maybe," Amelia admitted. "But it will be our choice." The Old One's attention shifted, and suddenly they could sense other alien intelligences, dozens of them, all trapped in the spaces between realities, all waiting for the gateway to be repaired so they could return to physical existence. "The gateway is damaged," the Old One communicated. "But not destroyed. It can be repaired." "How long will that take?" Kepler asked. "With the collective destroyed, we must work with primitive tools. Perhaps 1,000 of your years. Perhaps more." The team exchanged glances. 1,000 years was longer than human civilization had existed, but to beings that thought in geological time, it was nothing. "Will you leave us alone during that time?" Amelia asked. "We will not interfere with your development," the Old One replied. "But when the gateway is repaired, we will return. And then you will face the same choice again." "We'll be ready," Amelia said. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you will have grown wise enough to accept our guidance." The Old One's attention began to fade as the dimensional rift started to close. The collapsing structure around them was stabilizing, but at a much smaller scale than before. "The gateway is shutting down," Kepler reported. "The quantum fields are collapsing to sustainable levels." "What about the Orcs?" Torres asked. They looked around at the devastated lunar surface. The massive biological structures were gone, reduced to crystalline formations that pulsed weakly with residual energy. Scattered among them were the Orcs, but they were no longer the coordinated collective they had been. They moved aimlessly, their shared consciousness destroyed by the quantum virus. "They're lost," Tanaka observed. "Without the collective, they don't know what to do." "Will they recover?" Amelia asked. "Unknown," Tanaka replied. "They might develop individual consciousness, or they might simply fade away." The team made their way across the transformed lunar surface toward the remnants of their ship. The organic matter that had absorbed it was dead, but the ship's hull was intact. "We might be able to repair it," Kepler said, scanning the damage. "It will take time, but it's possible." As they worked to restore their ship, Amelia reflected on what they had accomplished. They had saved humanity from immediate extinction, but they had also made powerful enemies. The Old Ones would return, and when they did, humanity would need to be ready. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Tanaka asked as they worked. "We saved our species," Amelia replied. "That's what matters." "But for how long?" Amelia looked up at the Earth, hanging in the lunar sky like a blue jewel. Somewhere down there, humanity was continuing its existence, unaware of how close they had come to extinction. "Long enough," she said. "Long enough to find a better way." 1 year after the events on the Moon, Camet and Amelia stood in the observatory of the rebuilt Prometheus station, watching the lunar surface through the station's enhanced telescopes. The crystalline formations that remained from the Orc construction still pulsed weakly with residual energy, but they were dormant now, waiting for something that might never come. "The quantum virus was completely successful," Dr. Kepler reported, joining her at the observation deck. "The collective consciousness has been entirely disrupted. The Orcs are scattered across the lunar surface, but they're no longer coordinated." "What are they doing?" Amelia asked. "Learning to be individuals," Dr. Tanaka replied, materializing through the station's transport system. "It's fascinating from an anthropological perspective. They're essentially becoming a new species." "And the gateway?" "Sealed, but not destroyed," Kepler confirmed. "The quantum structure is still there, but it's in a stable, dormant state. It would take massive energy input to reactivate it." Amelia nodded, still watching the lunar surface. In the years since their mission, humanity had made significant changes. The Terran Council had established the Deep Watch, a monitoring system designed to detect any signs of Old One activity. New technologies had been developed to defend against interdimensional threats. And humanity had begun to spread beyond the solar system, establishing colonies in distant star systems as insurance against future extinction events. Do you think they'll keep their word? Tanaka asked. The old ones, I mean. Will they really wait 1,000 years? They're not bound by time the way we are, Amelia replied. 1,000 years is nothing to them. They'll wait. And when they come back? We'll be ready, Amelia said with conviction. We'll have had 1,000 years to prepare. Sergeant Major Torres joined them at the observation deck, his massive form silhouetted against the Earth's glow. The Defense Council has approved the new fleet specifications, he reported. Ships designed specifically for interdimensional warfare. They'll be ready within the decade. Good, Amelia said. But remember, we're not just preparing for war. We're preparing for a choice. What do you mean? Kepler asked. The old one we spoke with wasn't lying about the benefits of joining their collective. They genuinely believe they're offering us evolution, not enslavement. When they return, they'll make the same offer. And you think some humans might accept it? Tanaka asked. I think it's possible, Amelia admitted. Immortality, unlimited knowledge, connection to a vast cosmic consciousness. There are worse fates. But at the cost of our humanity, Torres pointed out. That's the choice we'll have to make, Amelia said. All of us, as a species. Do we remain human and face the challenges of existence alone, or do we evolve into something greater and lose ourselves in the process? The team stood in silence, contemplating the magnitude of the decision that humanity would eventually face. They had won a victory, but it was only the first battle in a war that would last millennia. At least we have time, Kepler said finally. Yes, Amelia agreed. We have time. As they watched, a new transport ship departed from the lunar surface, carrying the first group of Orc refugees to a specially prepared habitat in the asteroid belt. The former collective beings were slowly learning to exist as individuals, and humanity had taken responsibility for helping them adapt to their new existence. They're learning fast, Tanaka observed. Some of them are already showing signs of individual creativity and innovation. Maybe that's our real victory, Amelia said. Not just saving ourselves, but giving another species the chance to choose their own path. The observation session ended as the team returned to their duties. The deep watch required constant attention, and there were always new threats to monitor. But Amelia remained at the observation deck, watching the Earth turn slowly in the void. Somewhere in the spaces between realities, the old ones waited with patient intelligence. They had been disappointed by humanity's rejection of their offer, but they were not defeated. They would return, and when they did, they would be ready. But humanity would be ready too. 1,000 years of preparation, of technological advancement, of philosophical evolution. By the time the old ones returned, humanity might be so different that the choice between integration and independence would no longer be relevant. Or perhaps they would still face the same fundamental question: what did it mean to be human, and was it worth preserving in the face of cosmic forces beyond their comprehension? Only time would tell. As Amelia finally left the observation deck, she paused to look back at the lunar surface one more time. The crystalline formations pulsed weakly in the darkness, reminders of the threat that had passed and the greater threat that was yet to come. But for now, humanity was safe. They had their freedom, their independence, their future to shape as they chose. And they had the knowledge that they could face impossible odds and survive. It would have to be enough. The stars watched impassively as humanity continued its journey through the cosmos, carrying with them the burden and the gift of choice. Somewhere in the darkness between realities, ancient intelligences waited with patience beyond human understanding. But the vigil had begun, and it would continue for as long as humanity endured. The future, as always, remained unwritten.